Absolutely, yeah. BC had to come through the B pool, which means they had to play a quarterfinal regardless. Alberta went 1-2 in pool play, and by virtue of the fact that Ontario was the other team that went 1-2, and their one win was against Ontario, they were able to sneak their way into the quarterfinals, had a victory in the quarters, and the weird thing is, both teams that had byes to the semis lost in the semis, which means maybe playing that quarterfinal game earlier in the day gives you a little bit more momentum going into a semifinal game.
Well, it did for Alberta. That's what really got them into that final dance. As I said, we'll have that later on. They're just doing the introductions right now. As Bradbury's coming to the plate, we'll run that starting lineup here for Team Nova Scotia right now as Ellie McCauley is the center fielder. She'll bat first. Batting second, the right fielder, Elizabeth Gavel. Batting third, the shortstop, number 21, Emma Bradbury. Batting fourth, number 10, Avery Smith will do the pitching. Batting fifth will be Riley Johnston doing the catching. Batting sixth, Julia Conningshofer playing third base. Batting seventh will be Finway Ryder, the second base woman. And batting eighth will be Lanissa Sillaboy, the extra hitter. Shauna Galloway bats ninth.
And they will be batting into a defense for Quebec that is incredibly skilled. You look at the outfield, Naima Bolduc-So out in left, Tali Khoury in center, Clara Dupont in right. The infield from third to first, Raphael Auger, Dalika Dumoulin, who has an incredible arm there at short. At second base, it'll be Ella De Bedard and Noémie Letendre behind, or at first rather. Charlotte Elie behind the plate, and getting the start on the mound, Laurie Anne Carrière. And when you look at Carrière and what she has been able to do on the mound, she's had a very efficient pitching performance, 2 performances in fact, 4 innings pitched through the 2 appearances, 8 hits, just 4 runs, 3 of them earned, 2 walks, 1 strikeout. And Carrière, you got to figure first pitch strikes are going to be a big key in this game for both her and for the Nova Scotia pitcher Smith as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like the pitchers so far for both Quebec and Nova Scotia, they have done very well at basically throwing first pitch strikes, so that is going to be a key. Whoever doesn't really get up to that task is probably could find themselves on the losing end. Also want to say that Molly White will bat third. I missed her name in the starting lineup there, so Molly White bats third there for Team Nova Scotia as they make the introductions here to Team Quebec.
And of course, another big key, or what could be a big key, is Nova Scotia White has played all of their games on this diamond. This is their 5th straight game playing here on Robert Lenihan Field. For Quebec, they played their first game not even in this complex over at Weirfield against Ontario. Then 2 of their next 3 games were played over on Joan Lenihan, which has a much smaller outfield. The only game they played on this field was the game against Nova Scotia, and so is that going to be a factor, whereas Nova Scotia is much more familiar with these dimensions as opposed to Quebec?
Yeah, that remains to be interesting for sure. You had a chance to call a few bombs over there on that Joan Lenihan field.
Including 2 by Naomi Bolduc-So in the same game, a grand slam and a 3-run home run. She is going. One of those home runs may have even got out on this park. She has got some power hitting out there, and she's going to be one to watch for Team Quebec for sure. Yeah,
the little Houski bomb came over here earlier, of course, in one of the relegation games. So, yeah, this should be a dandy here. Beautiful weather out here for this bronze medal game. A little slight wind. It will change throughout the entire game. Sometimes it will blow in from the backstop out to right field. Now it's going from left field to right field.
And if Bolduc-So is up with that wind blowing straight out to right, she can pull that ball like anything. That's where she had one of her 2 home runs against Alberta, the other one almost a straightaway center. And another player that I really like from Team Quebec is Noémie Letendre, the first baseman. She's another one who's going to have a very strong day.
That basically, as she goes, so goes the machine that is Team Quebec. The umpires coming to home plate. Chris Roberts, the home plate umpire. Chris Solarski, the base umpire, and Steve Clark, the other base umpire. And Jared Conrad will be the backup umpire in case any of those three come down with injuries, and he is there at home plate as well.
And we have had one umpire injury during this tournament. I seem to recall an ump got a concussion, but now we should stop as they prepare for O Canada.
Well, if of course the pre-game ceremony's done, let's get ready. We've gone through that lineup. And they're going to go with a 4-man umpiring crew for this bronze medal championship game. As Brandon Cadet makes his way to home plate umpire to hand off the lineup cards in a very important game.
So we talked about a couple of the Quebec players who are key to watch. Like we said, Nova Scotia has played all of their games on this diamond, so I haven't had a chance to see them yet. Who are the players I should be watching out for?
Well, one of them should be, you've got to watch out. It's number 22, Julia Coningshofer. She'll play third base. She's been pretty well, stellar play, but she's had some struggles, and when she struggles, that's the reason why Nova Scotia's in this game. But she can really get some barrel on some balls there and can really drive it, so you got to keep an eye on her. And also you got to keep an eye on the cleanup hitter, Emma Bradbury, the shortstop. As she goes, she also makes some stellar plays. She's a sure-handed shortstop, so if she's on her game and they're grounding out to her, that could be a long afternoon there for Quebec. So keep an eye on her defensively as well. And what's also changed, Michael, is they've made some adjustments in this lineup. Lanissa Sillaboy is getting in as the extra hitter. She hasn't seen a lot of action over here, so they've played Dylan McLean a lot, and now she has to sit, so that's probably a little bit of a bitter pill for her to swallow, but Sillaboy's in as the extra hitter, trying to maybe get an extra little pop here in this offense, knowing that Quebec is really good in terms of pitching and have not allowed a lot of runs. So if you have a chance to really help yourself as much as you can offensively, that's what you really got to do here for Team Nova Scotia. So those are a couple of things you got to keep an eye on, is Bradbury as well as Coningshofer.
And another big factor within this game, we've got two very loud, very proud crowd contingents as Quebec. One of the things they are known for is the noise that they bring with their fans, and Nova Scotia, of course, as the host team here in this event, they've got quite the fan base supporting them as well, so this should be a very, very entertaining ball game as the stands around Robert Lenahan Field are jam-packed, hardly a seat to be found, including all the lawn chairs that people have brought with them.
Oh yeah, they're going to get a little bit closer there to that fenced area. So, and of course, Quebec does have the home game here, so they're doing their final defensive adjustments here, getting ready for Macaulay, Gavel, and Molly White, the first three hitters here for Nova Scotia in the top of the first.
One other thing about this Nova Scotia lineup, I was at this tournament last year and seeing the amount of names that look familiar, not only from this team last year, but the number of players who came up from that Nova Scotia 2 or Nova Scotia Blue team who are now part of this team this year. That just shows how solid and how strong Nova Scotia girls baseball's program is right from the top down.
Well, Nova Scotia, too, they were actually, pretty well neck for neck with BC earlier in the standings, but, that is a younger team, so they started facing some of those tougher teams, and it ended up they fell down the standings a bit as Macaulay steps in. Chris Roberts says, let's play ball. Let's get it underway here on a Sunday afternoon from Bedford. Strike one offering here, 0-1 the count.
And for those of you who care about such things, we got started 23 minutes behind schedule, which all things considered, the way things have gone in this tournament, not too bad.
Yeah, 3:24 Atlantic Standard Time for a start time. Right around 18 degrees, sunny skies, no threat of showers. Ball ripped to left right field, and that will get down. And amazingly, I don't know how the Quebec right fielder held on her feet as she almost went down. Dupont, as Macaulay will send it to the fence for a double.
And now they're going to let her take third base. Not sure what happened there to allow her to make the move over to third.
Well, that's the thing that's so great about this sport, Michael, is that you come to a baseball diamond and you will see things that you've never seen before.
And now the Quebec coach asking about that ruling as to why Macaulay is being given third base. A bit of an odd angle taken on that ball by Clara Dupont, the right fielder. Yes, she stumbled, but even before she stumbled, she was taking a bit more shallow of an angle than I think maybe she should have coming towards that ball, and that's what partially led to that miscue.
Yeah, instead of maybe run out just a little bit, instead of running towards, because you run towards in a straight line, that you're just asking for trouble. So Brodeur protests, but to no avail.
So Nova Scotia with a great chance to break things open early here. Runner on third and no one out.
And the defense here for Quebec is back, so a ground ball, they will concede the run as Elizabeth Gavel to the plate. Been doing the majority of the catching this weekend, takes a strike, 0-1. She's in the game here, playing right field.
And this is going to really test the mettle of the young pitcher for Quebec, Lauriane Carrière, how she deals with the adversity of having a runner on third and nobody out in this very first inning.
If there's anything positive, she can still go for the windup, as she's a right-hand pitcher, can actually see, of course, Macaulay down that third base line, so doesn't have to go into stretch mode if there's anything positive here with having a runner at third. 1-1 count to Gavel. Fights that off and sends it foul. Just another interesting note while we had some Nova Scotia fans that the Shauna Galloway's brothers, Ewan and Nolan Galloway, they won provincials earlier today, so Shauna wants to get in on the medal parade as well for bronze medal here in this game against Quebec. There's a ground ball, and that will bring it in.
Trading the out for the run, and both teams, I think, are going to be happy with that trade at this point in the ball game.
Molly White comes to the plate. Not only is she a good three-hitter, she's been pretty stellar with the glove defensively this weekend here for Nova Scotia 1. Carrier wheels and deals. A 52-footer. Makes it ball one there to Fall River, Nova Scotia native. Carrier now with a pretty well a fresh start here. No runners on base. Ball, it's popped to right field. And can't hang on is Dupont, and White will go into second base standing up. Dupont having a little bit of difficulty. That's that wind that we were talking about off the top, Michael. Swirling around and making fly balls and venture for these ladies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a very tough one there for Dupont, and she's having an adventure already. 2 balls hit out to the outfield, and both of them causing a lot of problems there for Dupont.
Shortstop Emma Bradbury steps in. Nova Scotia hoping maybe they could tack on another one here in this top of the first as Bradbury takes a strike, 0-1. Limbering up is Avery Smith. She'll be the starting pitcher here for Team Nova Scotia. 0-1 on its way from Carrier. First to look back to take a look at White. The ground ball goes to short. Steady hands and they'll send it over. In the meantime, moving up 90 feet is White. But the second out of the inning has been recorded. Avery Smith looks down to Coach Langell in the coaching box. Tyler Fancy, the former Kentville Wildcat, in the first base coaching box. Chris Langell coaching in the third base box, and Brandon Cadet calling the game from bench level. At the knee, says Chris Roberts for strike one.
What a beautiful pitch there by Carrier to get a first pitch strike, and we talked about this before the game started. First pitch strikes being key, and we're seeing that from Carrier here early.
Tries to throw a breaking ball, took something off and misses, so that evens the count at 1-1. Once again, steps out of the box, looks down to Langell and then steps back in. 1-1 offering on its way. Swing and a miss in the hole at 1-2.
Great level swing there by Smith, just not quite able to make contact.
Like to see them maybe open up the stance here and just try to get barrel on this one here. And the 1-2 offering by Carrier. Strike three at the numbers. Avery Smith goes down.
A big opportunity there for Carrier to kill off that potential rally with the two hits out into the outfield, giving Nova Scotia the early 1-0 lead. 1 run on 2 hits, no errors, and 1 runner left on base.
So half an inning in the books. Nova Scotia 1, Quebec 1 coming up. We're getting their first kicks at the can here at Avery Smith and Team Nova Scotia. Avery Smith getting ready to head to the mound. And we went over the order, but let's go over it once again there. Corey will be the bat first. Dumalong bat second. Dufresne third. Bolduc Sol, you were talking about her, so in that cleanup spot, hoping to make a little bit of damage. Latandra bats fifth. Carrier the pitcher sixth. Ellie doing the catching. O'Shea, third baseman, bats in the 8th spot. Ella Bedard Day in the 9th. And Claire Dupont would love to have that first inning erased out of her memory bank. Not one that she would like to put on her resume, but hopefully maybe she'll make some damage there in that 10th spot there for Quebec. So let's look at the defense here for Nova Scotia. Shauna Galloway, as we talked about, the left fielder. Center fielder McCauley. Elizabeth Gavel, the right fielder. From third to first, Julia Conningshofer is the third baseman. Shortstop Bradbury, as usual. Fenway Ryder, the second baseman. First baseman Molly White. And Riley Johnston, who hasn't seen a lot of action here at these championships, in behind the plate. Maybe it's Avery Smith's personal catcher, Johnston. And that has set the defense here for Nova Scotia here.
And as we look at Smith, she's thrown 4 1/3 innings through 2 games so far. This is her first start of the tournament. And in that 4 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 1 walk, 1 run it was not earned, and 3 strikeouts. So an ERA of 0, a whip of 1.15. Very good numbers for Smith, making her first start on the mound here this weekend.
Brandon Cadet was trying to get her some rest. This is a ground ball. Conningshofer's going to have to hurry. Stretched by White. Solarski punches out Corey.
What a play there by White to make the stretch. I was noticing when they were taking their infield, the length of leg of a first baseman, so important. You think back to John Olerud, and she sort of reminds me of that John Olerud style body for a first baseman, coming up big there with that long stretch.
Yeah, that really helped. Conningshofer to White. Strike one now to Dumalong, the shortstop there for Quebec 1.
Dumalong, if she gets on base, watch her for speed, and more speed. She's got the jets like you wouldn't believe.
Pops that up. White as well as Smith. It will be White that calls off the pitcher and makes the catch. NASA called. They want to know what that object was that got out there.
My goodness, that one went up high.
Rosalie Dufresne, the extra hitter here with 2 down for Quebec 1 here in this bottom of the first, trailing by a score of 1-0. That one's over the bill of her batting helmet for ball 1. Was saying that Smith was actually tried to be rested here more for this one. They tried to sit her down in one of the games, but Nova Scotia was getting down early and was getting out of hand. Had to bring her back in, had to bring her in a relief appearance as they were unable to, the starting pitcher, which name can't remember right now, was unable to get out of the first inning, and she was a spare, so she got them innings and ended up Nova Scotia came from behind in that game. So they were trying to get it for Championship Sunday to have her well rested. She seems to be good so far.
And that's such an important part of coaching at a tournament like this, where you've got to monitor pitch counts, you've got to monitor days of rest, you've got to watch all those things. You have your plan, and plans are only good until the very first hit of the game. Most of the time, Dufresne with the walk, that'll bring up Bolduc-So. And here we go with some numbers that are going to absolutely sicken some people. A 786 slugging percentage with 4 for 14, a single, a double, 2 home runs, 9 RBI, and 4 runs scored so far in the tournament for Bolduc-So.
Well, that's an impressive resume. I don't know. Maybe you and I should maybe get her to go on a slow pitch team. If you have a slow pitch team, I'd take her. Yeah. Those are quite impressive numbers.
Yeah, I'm not on a team myself, but I got a buddy who's looking for more people. I'll try and set them up.
Yeah, single there to right field. So we're talking about the big numbers as she pokes it through White and Fenway Ryder. So Quebec now in business.
And
with 2 down.
And the thing about Bolduc-So there on that at bat, the pitch was outside. She didn't try to pull it. She didn't try to do anything other than what that pitch gave her, which was go the opposite way, get the single, and keep the line moving.
Noé Letendre into the box here. I've been really impressed with Letendre. I've seen her a couple of games, and she'll bounce that down the conning chauffeur. Nice play. Over to White, who scoops it out to retire the side, but I've really been impressed with Letendre's defense here for Quebec number 1 as the inning comes to an end.
No runs, 1 hit, no errors, and 2 runners left on base. We played 1 complete, and Nova Scotia won with the lead over Quebec 1 by a score of 1-0.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to say that's a very good first inning. I know what you were talking about, how you saw some of these players on the Nova Scotia 2, the blue team last year, and how they made the jump up here to 1. This is probably maybe unfamiliar territory for them, so they maybe want to get that first inning out of the way to get those jitters on, because you're not used to like looking up at a stand and seeing this amount of many people here watching, so all of a sudden that starts to play in your head. Of course, the cameras as well. That's the reason why we're here. So everything all of a sudden, you get into playoffs, you get into championships and stuff like that, all of a sudden everything sort of gets intense.
And because they were part of that Nova Scotia blue team last year, they got that little bit of a taste of it. Not the whole real thing, not getting into a medal game like Nova Scotia did last year, but at least getting a taste of what it's like and understanding what to expect in some ways, and the leadership role of the players who were on the white team before. To be able to bring them under their wings and say, here's what you can expect, here's what it was like for us last year. And so those players who do have that experience with the top team from last year, playing that great leadership role, making sure that the ones who are coming up have a good understanding of what's expected.
Riley Johnston hasn't seen a lot of at-bats here, leading it off here for Nova Scotia here, top of the second with a 1-0 lead. Johnson, Connie Chauffeur, and Ryder the first 3. Johnson been doing the backup catcher role. Gavel's been doing most of the catching this weekend and has had just a couple of at-bats this weekend.
Actually, just the one plate appearance so far for Johnston. As I look up the stats, kind of amazing that that's all she's seen so far, and to put her in this kind of a role without having played an awful lot this weekend.
Well, you'd have to think it's almost like one of the defensive catchers sort of thing. You're trying to basically, for Smith maybe feels more comfortable throwing to Johnson as opposed to Gavel, so it's got to be thinking that that's the cause. Ripped to center field, but it's well under it, and making the catch there was Corey to retire the catcher.
Very well played out there in center field by Corey, getting the move over to her left and being well positioned in time for that ball to come down.
As Team Nova Scotia 1 goes, it's usually this lady that has smirked the offense. Playing third base this afternoon, Julia Coningshofer. She had a beautiful pitching performance Thursday and a win.
.467 on base percentage, 2 for 10 with 4 walks and a hit by pitch.
Tyler Fancy getting the Bronx cheer from a very hard Nova Scotia crowd there. Tyler Fancy, former catcher there for the for the Kentville Wildcats, Nova Scotia Senior Baseball League. Kentville Wildcats missing his leadership behind the plate this year as Wildcats a little bit in transition. Find themselves in third place right now in the 4-team Nova Scotia Senior Baseball League. The wind picks up, going from left field to right. Change up, and Coningshofer looks at it, and she goes down. Strike 3.
2 Ks so far for Carriere, a great start for her, despite the couple of hits that she gave up back in the first.
I don't know how many great baseball names you've had to see in the past, but here's one for you, Fenway Ryder, and she is named after Fenway Park.
Well, better than anyone would be named Skydome. You just can't really, it doesn't really roll off the tongue, right? So I still won't call it by that other name that they try to make it go by. It's still the Skydome to me. But yeah, Fenway, a perfect name for a ball player.
Would you imagine naming your kid Tropicana? If you have the last name Field and name your kid Tropicana?
No, thank you. No, thank you. That's for sure. That's the problem with too many of these fields nowadays.
What if you were the last name Made and your first name Minute? Minute Maid.
Oh, there you go.
Ryder a couple of days ago got a ball in the shin. She was outside of the third baseline. It was a liner and really couldn't get out of the way. She left the game, but she's came back and she's not really favoring that one. That's a little duck, duck, goose on that one.
Carriere trying to see if she could get Ryder to chase one high, but Ryder, rather than trying to chase it, ducks to make sure that the ump knows, hey, that was a ball.
Offering from Carriere, Ryder, and this will get down in front of Corey for a base hit. 2-out Riley going on here. Lanissa Sillaboy. Now you talked about her one bad appearance here for Johnson. This is her first plate appearance here at the championships, and what a way to be on the big stage here at the bronze medal game.
For Sillaboy, and I believe, if memory serves, the only player on this team based out of Cape Breton.
Eskasoni,
yes.
Yes.
If memory serves, yeah. So that sometimes makes for a bit of a challenge trying to get the team together. You look at some of the other teams we've had at this tournament, Saskatchewan in particular, 7 of the players on Saskatchewan are from Saskatoon, so a little bit easier. And then you've got a player like Sillaboy here from all the way up in Eskasoni, a little harder to get her together for practices and games and whatnot.
Sillaboy gave it a ride, but Corey right on and makes that catch to retire a possible 2-out rally here for Nova Scotia, but it will go by the wayside. No runs that inning once again. And we'll head to the bottom of the second, and Carrier will try to help out her cause, Elie and Auger, the first 3 here for Quebec.
And while we've got a pause between innings here, want to take a moment to give a great big thank you and a shout out to the tournament chair, Holly Lapierre, she and her entire staff have done an incredible job this weekend. The grounds crews for the fields have kept them in absolutely perfect playing condition. We got to give a shout out to Debbie and her staff in the canteen as well. So many people doing such a great job to help make this tournament run so smoothly. The best thing you can say about Holly and her crew, you haven't noticed them at all because everything's run so smoothly.
Yeah, a couple of the under 21 Royals, Brett Stover, Luke Nicholson doing some work as well, and also some canteen workers. Had a chance to work with these ladies and gentlemen all year. It's my first year involved doing public address for the organization, and Holly has taken me from the friendly confines of Truro and has brought me down here to do it, and it has been a fantastic opportunity, and I'm greatly appreciating her for it. As Carrier will step in, there's a question for you, Michael, that you've watched a lot of baseball, just like I have. Have you ever seen many baseball players with like that football cage? You usually see that in softball, but not really a lot in baseball.
You don't see it a lot in baseball, but I, for one, think it is the future of the game. You see in the majors, they wear that modified helmet now as that foul ball falls in. And I think you're going to start seeing it more and more as players recognize the value of their faces, not just from a merchandising standpoint at the big level, but for players for whom baseball might not be their financial career. They need to protect their faces, protect their jaws, and I think it's a very good move as long as it doesn't impact on your vision.
Yeah, because you think about it, like that little thing that comes down, it's almost right about the cheek level. I'm not sure if I'd be really comfortable. Of course, I'm used to those old batting helmets with the no ear flaps, and those are not to be worn. Of course, that will get by Galloway. But it's followed up by McCauley, but a big wide turn by Carrier. So the lead-off person is on here for Quebec 1 here in the bottom of the second.
And we talked in the first inning about the way the angle was taken by DuPont on a couple of balls there. There we saw a prime example of how to take an angle. Very well played by McCauley to get on that ball and hold Carrier to a single.
McCauley's got some range there. Let's see if Danielle Brodeur has anything cooking here. But first will be a toss over. And Carrier easily back in.
One of the things I always watch on right-handed pitchers is how good is their move to first base. Really liked that move there from Smith.
You know, we've seen, like for me, Team Ontario, Elston, she did some fancy footwork, and you pretty well knew it was tipping it off that she was coming to first. So as you say, you're big on that, so was I. And
I really like the other thing. How good can a pitcher deliver a pitch with a slide step to try and deal with the running game as well?
Yeah, also pitching from the stretch as that's bounced foul there by the catcher, Ali.
And Charlotte Ali, 1 for 5 so far on the tournament, but despite a batting average of only 200, the on-base percentage, .556, when you throw in her 3 walks and getting hit by a pitch once, 2 RBI, 4 runs scored so far. For the Quebec catcher.
Yeah, that's one of those cases in a tournament like this, sometimes batting average doesn't really tell a story, and Ali will take a seat as Smith throws a chair.
And now that'll bring up Raphael Auger. Auger hasn't seen quite as much action as some of the other Quebec players. Just 0 for 3 in 5 plate appearances with 2 walks. But both times she's walked, she's been able to get all the way around to score.
Nothing from Carrier. A big whiff by Auger as makes it no balls, 1 strike.
Looked like she may have been chasing one out of the zone there. That pitch might have been a little bit outside, but...
Wow, it's just like what you talked about. When you only get 5 at-bats and you get in there, all of a sudden your player, as Carrier goes, I'll finish my point here in a second, a throw well high and goes out to center field, but McCauley was backing it up. It's just all of a sudden you get a chance to get in a lineup, you may be squeezing that bat and you may be expanding your strike zone, and when you expand your strike zone, that's really not really in your best interest and really doesn't make you set up for success.
And now a next point on that play, the fundamentals of this Nova Scotia team. McCauley coming in to make sure that if that ball gets past second base on the attempted steal, that she's there to prevent the runner from going to third. Just great fundamental defensive baseball for this Nova Scotia team.
And it's really tough because, I know that Quebec has probably looked and seen the opportunities that Johnston's had to play, so they're going to try to test that arm, and they did, and she was way off the base, and so all of a sudden now Quebec was thinking maybe there's going to be more opportunities to run on Team Nova Scotia this afternoon.
And Auger extending this at bat here with a couple of 2-strike foul balls, and I've talked about it a number of times in the broadcast that I had over on Joan Lenahan Field, how important it is to make those pitchers throw those extra pitches, get up in their pitch counts. Today it's a little bit different because there's no worrying about who you're going to have for tomorrow.
Yeah, there's no tomorrow.
But still, if you can make Smith get to 95 in 4.5 or 5 innings, as opposed to letting her get all 6 or 7 innings in, that could certainly play a factor in how this game plays out.
Well, you get this far into the championships, and of course then pitching all of a sudden becomes a little bit limited. Everybody's arms are a little bit fatigued. And that actually hits Auger. So Ella Bedard-Day, the second baseman, will come up.
And we talked about the Nova Scotia 2, or Nova Scotia Blue, Nova Scotia 2, however you want to refer to them. Day Bedard was part of Quebec 2 at last year's tournament and got that experience, and now is up with Quebec 1, as are a couple of other players from this team. So we're seeing the importance of those developmental programs for both provinces that were able to bring developmental teams to last year and this year's tournament, and how it's translating into success.
It's kind of funny here, of course. You talked about Nova Scotia 1, Quebec 1. Here they are in the bronze medal, and of course there were also relegation rounds, and it was Nova Scotia 2 versus Quebec 2. So they are pretty well neck and neck, step for step in its development, as you mentioned.
And the great thing is, if the pooling system works the same way next year when the tournament moves to Summerside, Nova Scotia 1 and Quebec 1 will be in a pool together. Nova Scotia 2 and Quebec 2 will be in the pool together, so we'll get to see them play against each other again and watch the development of these two great provinces.
Smith misses with this one as she's starting to linger here in this bottom of the second. 2 on, and only 1 out so far. Nova Scotia would like it round 1 up and get a double play here and get back on the sticks.
Nice strike there to calm things down by Smith. That's another thing that you really watch for, is if a pitcher does start to lose control a little bit, how quickly can they get it back?
Here's the payoff, and it's ball 4 as White went in behind the runner. Actually, that was interesting. I really was thinking that White went in behind the runner. Usually you do that when a full count, and that just really allowed easy access and made Quebec go up the second and third quite easily. Interesting decision or interesting strategy for sure.
And the jump that Carriere had from second, she was almost all the way to third base before Smith was even finished her delivery.
Swing and a miss as Day goes down. And we talked about Claire DuPont's struggles there in that top of the first. Here she has a chance here to, with 2 ducks on the pond, 2 outs, bottom of the second.
Still looking for her first hit of the tournament, 0 for 1 with a walk in 2 previous plate appearances.
Johnston really wanted that one, left it there for Roberts to take a good look at, but it's got to go as a ball 1 here to the right fielder. So 1-0, and that's high for 2-0.
That's something we've seen a lot from some of the catchers, more so at this higher level, the Nova Scotia 1, the Quebec 1 type teams, that the catchers from PEI in Newfoundland and New Brunswick need to learn is how to frame those pitches. That's part of that learning curve that some of those second-tier provinces are getting better at, but there's still a little bit of a step of a way to go there.
2-1 now is Smith with a strike. Here's the 2-1 offering. Framed again, but no dice. 3-1. Nova Scotia does have a base to work with, but you really don't want to turn it over to the top of the order, Corey, as she's on deck next for Quebec 1. Swing and a miss, so that will fill her up.
A big pitch there for Smith to get the count full.
Smith will go from the windup here. Here is the payoff. Swing and a miss, she struck her out.
Striking out the side in between a hit and a hit batsman, so no runs, 1 hit, no errors, and 2 runners left. And we'll head to the third.
Yeah, and heading to the third to call the action will be you, Michael, so I'll hand the mic off to you.
Well, thank you very much. It's Dan, it's been a pleasure to be here all weekend long, and now to get a chance to call these medal games due up in the top of the third for Nova Scotia. It'll be 10-1-2. That's Shauna Galloway, Ellie McCauley, and Elizabeth Gavel. And Quebec, as I always do at the beginning of every inning, especially through this tournament, take a quick scan around the field just to make sure there's no defensive changes, especially when you get later in the game. It starts becoming a bit of a challenge to go, okay, who's where now?
Yeah, well, as I was about ready to say, you look at your scorecard, it looks relatively nice and neat. It won't be like that.
Yeah, just
by the time you get to the fourth,
as I go
you
back,
might as well take a picture of it now. It's not going to be like that.
Go back through the book here, and one of the teams that's been great for that has been Newfoundland and Labrador. They brought 17 players to this tournament, and in most of their games, they've gotten all 17 players in. They had their game earlier today. They played for 9th and 10th place against Manitoba, and they literally did get all 17 players in, and I challenge anybody to try and decipher this chicken scratch from that game.
I'm sure that mine's just as bad. Look at that mess.
Yeah, there we go.
It's so bad sometimes I can't even decipher it out.
So Shauna Galloway will lead things off here for Nova Scotia 1 in the top of the third inning. Galloway 3 for 10 so far on the tournament with 2 singles, a double, 3 RBI, 3 runs scored. She also has 3 walks to help improve that on-base percentage. Grounder down to third, gathered up, throw across the diamond in time. 1 pitch, 1 out here in the top of the third inning, and that will bring us back around to the top of the order. Ellie McCauley, she had that leadoff double to start the game off about 32 minutes ago, and then came around to score that double out to right center field. But a long look down to third base at the coach before we get things going. Now we'll get a ball that had left to come back in, as Carrière continues to work here in the top of the third inning. Second time through the order. We'll see if the Nova Scotia players have a chance to make an adjustment seeing Carrière for the second time. High fly ball, shallow center field coming in, making the catch is Coury for the second out. 2 pitches, 2 outs. Pretty quick work here in the top of the third inning.
Well, you just touched on it. We're going through that second time in the order. Of course, you sometimes hear about the third, but it's been the second time here because all of a sudden you'll see an inning where it's a 3-up, 3-down, and then they get, of course, going through the order the second time, and all of a sudden the wheels come off the bus. It's like 7 or 8 runs in this tournament. That has been really one of the keys so far, watching it. It's been like that for me. How about for you over on the Joan Linehan field?
Same sort of thing. The amount of big innings that we've seen as they are the second time through a batting order, and the hitters have that opportunity for that little bit more familiarity, that little bit more knowledge of what to expect. As Gavel is up here, takes a strike there. Gavel 0 for 1, but a productive out. And in this day of analytics in baseball, you hear that phrase, you know that means something. The RBI ground out for Gavel back in the first inning, driving in McCauley. Takes another strike there, and count now 1-2 on the right fielder for Team Nova Scotia White. For simplicity's sake, I think I'm just going to start referring to them as Nova Scotia and Quebec. We know that these are the top-tier teams in each of their respective provinces. We saw the 2 teams for each of these provinces play earlier. We know this is the top tier.
That might be a good idea, especially when we're trying to give the score in this.
as that one will fall in for a single, and it gets through the left fielder, Bolduc-So. Heading around to second is Gavel. And Bolduc-So, a very uncharacteristic fielding error there for her, as not only is she a great hitter, but she's also very solid in the field. Surprising to see her let that one get by her. So that'll bring up Molly White. White doubled her first time up and came around to score. That improved her batting average to an absolutely absurd level. She's now 9 for 14 on the tournament, and I just got to pull the calculator up real quick to get what that number actually is. But I won't get a chance because a grounder to third across the diamond. Big throw there from the third baseman, Auger, for the third out of the inning. So no runs, one hit, no errors, and one runner left on base. We've played 2.5. Nova Scotia continues to lead Quebec 1-0. And now that we're in a break between innings, I am going to actually get the calculator going here. 643 now was the batting average for Molly White prior to that at bat. She's now 9 for 15.
I can figure that one out.
That one,
600. I can figure that one out.
Yeah, and 600 batting average. Yes, it's a small sample size just over the span of one weekend, but I don't care how small the sample size is. If you're talking 600, you're talking pretty good hitting.
And it's really, you look at that, it can only really go down from it because the quality of pitching as you go on. So, yeah, I never put too much, a lot. I put a lot into it over a long time, but of course a short time at a tournament like this, that's big numbers.
Yeah, and, you know, I find it easier to dismiss an offer over a short period of time. I rarely will dismiss a hot hitter over an offer because a hot hitter obviously has the skill set to be able to get hot. Any hitter can have a slump no matter how good they are, but even your average or poorer hitters are rarely, if ever, going to have a stretch of time over any period where they're hitting 600. So we talked about going through the second time through the order. Well, Quebec gets to start their second time through the order here as we get to the bottom of the third. Tali Khoury will lead things off. She grounded out to third her first time up. And the first pitch misses low for a ball. 1-0 the count here. As Avery Smith working through the Quebec order for the second time. Dumoulin and Dufresne will round out as that foul ball ends up going just over our broadcast position here a little ways down the right field line. And the other thing I want to just mention really quickly, if I am mispronouncing any of these names, particularly the really strong French names, I do not do it with any intended offense. I always like to throw that disclaimer out because it's something I always worry about. I do have French Canadian heritage in my family, but I haven't learned proper French in a long time. There's a grounder right back to Smith. Easy flip over to first for the second out as White was there to receive the pass, and for the first out, excuse me. And that brings up Delika Dumoulin. She popped out to White her first time up. And Dumoulin now on the tournament 5 for 12 with a walk as well. 1 RBI, 3 runs scored. That pitch misses just a little bit high.
One of the things I see about Dumoulin, she really likes to be right up on the plate. You used to like to see some players have their foot right on the back line to get a good look, but she's right on the plate, so she's going to have to be really quick with the hands if she's going to be that far up. And
she is quick with her hands. I mean, I've had a chance to see it a few times, and just like the fast feet that I talked about, fast hands as well, and a smaller strike zone than some other players.
You get in that crouch, that really makes it hard too, because she's got a wide open stance and bends the knees, shrinks that strike zone as much as possible. Not quite as much of a crouch as
If anybody watched the Little League World Series, of course, that crouch that we all saw from, I believe it was one of the players from Latin America who had that insanely low crouch that Puig sort of made fun of there, or not made fun of, but paid homage to in a game against, I think it was against Pittsburgh, that Puig was having some fun with it. Throw over to first. And getting back in is Dumoulin, and Smith is going to have to watch Dumoulin closely here. As I mentioned, she has got some wheels. She will probably not be at first base very long.
She looks like she's got the gear to go, but they'll toss over again.
And a really nice move by Smith there. Again, the throw coming in a little bit high to apply a tag, but that was not about trying to apply a tag. That was about letting Dumoulin know, I'm aware that you're there, and I'm not going to let you get a good jump. That throw, much more about seeing if you could get a tag applied, as it was down around the knee of her first baseman. And White doing a good job of keeping that ball in front of her.
Would like to see a little bit of a different look here, because she's seen it, now she's on the go.
And the throw down, not in time, as Dumoulin gets the steal relatively comfortably with Dufresne at the plate. Dufresne walked her first time up. The left-handed extra hitter for Team Quebec, facing the right-hander Smith. That one misses high. And you look at the size of the lead that Dumoulin is getting at second. She may very well decide to try and take third here at some point during this at-bat.
Well, you talked about it earlier, about slumps and hitting slumps sometimes, of course, but speed never takes a day off.
There's a throw back to try and get the pickoff at second, and Dumoulin gets back in safely with a cloud of dust. And at this point, you start to wonder whether Smith's family has stock in Procter & Gamble. Smith getting herself set. Long look back again at second base. That one misses high. And you got to wonder if Smith is a little bit too distracted by Dumoulin right now, as she has yet to hit the zone in a pitch to Dufresne while Dumoulin's been out there on base.
Well, yeah, it's got to be tickling on the back of your head, that is for sure.
There's a... Actually, that makes the count 3-1. I guess one of those other pitches had been called a strike. So it's now 3-1. And here comes the 3-1 pitch. Foul tip, and the count runs full. Just a little bit of contact made there by Dufresne, chasing one maybe a little bit out of the zone, and we see that Dylan McLean is warming up in the Nova Scotia bullpen. So Smith, on this second time through the order, may not be out there long. There's a hard hit ball pulled foul.
First base coach doing a little skip to Malou to get out of the way of that one.
We talk about the quick feet of Dumoulin. How about the quick feet there on the coach?
That's some happy feet, man. That's some happy feet.
So Smith with another chance at a 3-2 offering here. Takes a quick look back at Dumoulin. Swing on and miss. Fourth strikeout for Smith. And Dufresne might have just chased ball 4 there, as it looked like that one was up out of the zone. 2 away, and that'll bring up Naima Bolduc-So. And before we get to Bolduc-So, we're going to get time called, and I think we might see the pitching change happen here.
That's Brandon Gaudette going to the mound, and yeah, McLean will make her way in.
So you don't want to give a hitter like Bolduc-So any sort of advantage at all, and if she's already seen a pitcher once, that's a step of an advantage. And this not a statement about Smith in any way, No, he's going to let her stay in and pitch to Bolduc-So.
That was kind of surprising because McLean, of course, walking back to the dugout made you think that they were going to go with the change right away, but Gannett going to allow her to, as you say, face her for the second time, and sometimes second times here at these championships has not worked out very well for the teams, but some of these power hitters have really ate up on the pitching when they've had a second turn at that pitcher.
That one misses outside, and I think what might have been said in that was, we're not going to intentionally walk her, but don't give her a single pitch to actually hit. With a runner on second and 2 away, throw back to second again, and Ryder there to apply the tag, but Dumoulin got back in. Then a little exchange of pleasantries between Dumoulin and Ryder. Smith gets herself set, and again she'll throw back to second.
Now you got to wonder if she caught that cleanly, Ryder, if might have been out on that one.
As Dumoulin looked like she slipped a little bit trying to dive her way back into the bag. There's a strike on the inside corner, and the count goes to 1-1.
Well, you talked about it earlier about Smith, and of course the runners being in her head. This is, as you've talked about and documented here during our broadcast, this is a hitter that she doesn't really want to leave something right down the middle.
There's a hard hit ball, but right back at Smith, over to first for the third out. So 2 comebackers and a strikeout for Smith. Wrapped around a walk to Dumoulin, no runs, no hits, no errors, 1 runner left on base. We've played 3 complete, and this bronze medal game living up to the hype. It's 1-0 for Nova Scotia over Quebec. Due up in the top of the 4th, it'll be Bradbury, Smith, and Johnston. And if anyone gets on, then it's Koenig-Schofer. As Carrière out there for her 4th inning of work, and as we look down at the pitch count, both Carrière and Smith still have plenty of room to work with if their respective coaching staff so choose.
And of course you were talking about pitching, and now it looks like we're going to get McCauley up going here in the bullpen as Brandon Gannett and her walk down to the bullpen area just close to our broadcast location. So looks like, of course, he started off with Dylan McLean and now looks like going to try to get McCauley some tosses in between the innings. So it's going to be one of those games. I think it could be by committee, Michael. It could be about 4 or 5 pitchers being used for both of these teams because, as you say, the pitching, as you've gone on, like for Team Nova Scotia, they had 2 games on Thursday. Quebec had 2 games on Friday. So
it does make a
all
bit
of
of
a
a
sudden
difference.
it starts to add up, you know, that all of a sudden you don't have the arm strength like you originally had to start the championship. So
the good news, the good news for each of these teams is they both didn't have that quarterfinal, that extra game. We're going to see between BC and Alberta in the gold medal game at 6 o'clock tonight that both of those teams did have to go through the quarterfinal, so they'll both be playing their 6th game in 4 days, whereas these 2 teams, they're both playing their 5th game in 4 days. And that one extra game, at least we've got both teams in the same boat in both games.
Well, one of the things that you got to be concerned about that gold medal game, if you're a fan of British Columbia, have you peaked too much right now? All of a sudden you get to that 5-0, it starts to get in players' head. It's like, well, we've got to be perfect. We've been perfect so far, and then we start doing that. That's when you get into trouble.
There's a high fly ball, shallow right field. Coming back to make the catch is the second baseman as Dave Bedard makes that catch, and coming in from right field for support was Clara Dupont, and she lost her footing again. I don't know, maybe something going on with her cleats as she slipped trying to come in on that ball. Dave Bedard was able to get out and make the catch, but maybe something going on with the footwear there for Clara Dupont as she's had her struggles out there in right field so far. Avery Smith comes up here. She's 0 for 1 with a strikeout, a chance to help herself out on the mound. takes a first pitch strike there. And the other thing about Team BC, talking about the gold medal game tonight, they're going to be down a player as well. Swing and a miss there, as one of their players went down with a hamstring pull trying to swing at a pitch in the game last night. Maxie Lloyd couldn't even finish her first at bat, and when we came to the end of the game and the handshakes needed to be carried down the handshake line, so Maxie Lloyd not going to be available for BC tonight, or at least I would be very surprised if she is available for them at all.
Can't even really put her in the extra hitter spot, because I mean you need your legs to generate the power.
And it was on a swing that she injured herself. She was swinging at a 1-1 pitch, and as she swung, you could see the look on her face, and she immediately went down the line to talk to her, or she didn't even come down the line. She pulled out of the batter's box, and you could see that she was in incredible pain and did not finish that at bat. And like I said, did not stay in the game. Had to be pulled and couldn't walk herself down the handshake line at the end. Grounder down to short, across the diamond in time, and a nice stretch there by Latendre. We talked about the stretch ability of White. Latendre there showing off that she can reach out and get the ball when she needs to as well.
Well, isn't that like something that you have in your back pocket when you know that your first baseman can bail you out? She's got the good heads, and you talked about the stretch there. Latendre with helping out her shortstop that time, because that throw was really off the base just a bit, but she went out and got it.
That'll bring up Riley Johnston. She's 0 for 1. A well-hit ball out to center field her first time up, but just a little bit too much underneath it. If the swing had been just a fraction of an inch more level, we'd be talking about Johnston with a lead off with, and there's another very hard hit ball by Johnston, but right at Carrière. We talked about flattening out the swing. Well, she did that, but she ended up putting it right at Carrière. No runs, no hits, no errors, nobody left on base. A quick 1-2-3 inning in the top of the fourth. We head to the bottom of the fourth. We've reached the midway point of this game, and just one run on the board between these two teams, and it goes to Team Nova Scotia back in the first. 1-0, due up for Quebec in the bottom of the fourth. It'll be Latendre, Carrière, and Elie, and if anyone gets on, then we're looking at Auger. And it is Smith back out there to get things started here in the fourth inning, but as you've mentioned, we've seen two different pitchers warming up to come in potential relief, so you wonder how short the string is on Smith here going through this order for the second time.
Well, of course, if Connie Chauffeur, the third baseman, may be also available to be in pitching duty. She pitched a couple, I believe 5 innings in the first day, so she should be good to go for today. Did get her couple of days rest after getting a very high pitch count, so she's definitely available. And Gavel, the right fielder, I think really gave them some innings yesterday, so she's not. So it's going to definitely be Smith, White, McLean, and McCauley for arms if Nova Scotia needs to, but they're going to try to go with Smith as long as they can. But as we document it, it's that second time around where all of a sudden things start to unravel here for pitchers, and these top offensive players start locking in.
And here is Noémie Latendre. She grounded out to third her first time up. Takes a first pitch strike. And Smith, we talked about those first pitch strikes, how important they are. Both Smith and Carrière have been consistently hitting strike one. That one misses high and inside, and the count goes to 1-1. As the defense for Nova Scotia playing a little bit more to go the opposite way on Latendre, and she does go to the right side of the infield, but Ryder with the quick pickup and throw over to first. Ryder had her played almost perfectly, hardly had to move at all to get that ball, and one away for Lauriane Carrière.
Well, this is the thing when you meet in the round robin portion, you get a chance to see things and maybe, take it to heart of what happened in that game and almost have a factor where the first game you may not have that factor. It may be an unknown factor, so you may not be able to set your defense like you can. You talked about analytics before, analytics saying about where players hit and stuff. There's none of that at this level, but you can see what players do. Well scouted out by Gannett's coaching staff.
And a couple of pitches just missed the zone here early in the count on Lauriane Carrière. Carrière singled her first time up, fouls that one off, and the count will go to 2-1. And something you don't get quite as much on Robert Lenihan Field as we did on Joan. Every foul ball that goes back over the backstop, we were always watching, is it going to hit a car? Don't get quite as much of that here on this one. There's a swing and a miss, and the count goes to 2-2.
That's why I'm way over there. Because my car is like a magnet for baseballs.
We did actually have one foul ball do some damage to the back windshield of a car back on Friday, I think it was. Carrière takes that one inside, and the count now runs full. But it almost became a sport in and of itself. Is the ball going to hit something? As it went out into foul play. There's a hard hit ball, and that will drop in for a single. So Carrière now 2 for 2 on the day. That'll bring up Charlotte Elie. She struck out her first time up. One of 4 strikeout victims for Smith so far on the day. And Elie standing in. One of the things about being the catcher, you can't argue too much when you strike out looking because you want to get those same calls when you're behind the plate.
That's where you usually like to have a conversation there, say, well, if that missed, how much did it miss by? Where do we need? Have really conversations. Use that information that you can. You can also even use it to yourself at the plate, and say, hey, look, I think that, for example, Chris Roberts is maybe leading a little bit more 6 inches outside as opposed to 6 inches inside. So basically you got to be a politician back there as well.
That pitch misses high and inside, and I think that one was a definite no-doubter, as the wind picking up here a little bit more, blowing across from left to right, maybe a little bit out towards the right field side, but it won't be helping the power hitters quite as much, that's for sure.
Oh, this is all of a sudden, this field, it can change as quick as a New York minute. The wind could be blowing from foul pole to foul pole. It could be go from the backstop all the way out to right field, and then there could be nothing. And minutes later, absolutely nothing. The weather's just crazy at this field.
It is, but we've been very fortunate with how little rain we've ended up with, despite the fact that on Thursday in particular we were told the schedule might get messed up, but no, we only had maybe 5-10 minutes of misting rain on Thursday and nothing really at all since.
Well, this should be it here for Smith because that's the second visit out to the mound. Maybe Gaudette going to have a talk, but second one in the game, of course, 2 an inning, and then when you go the second time, you have to make the pitching change. They're going to talk it out. And Roberts is going to come up and break this one up here, the home plate umpire, and she'll stay once again. So she's, sometimes when you're a pitcher, you get to this juncture in a tournament, and I know that probably she's not really impressed with her pitching job. Not really doing too bad. Only has given up 3 hits in this game to Quebec hitters, but sometimes when you're off your game, you step it up. You may not have your best, but you still find a way because you're a competitor, just like Roy Halladay. May not have his best stuff on that day, but they still find a way to dig it up and gut it out to try to give your team a good chance to win, and that's what Smith's doing here.
Only 3 hits, but she's also given up 3 walks and a hit batsman, and there's a good pitch, making it 1-1 the count on Auger. Speaking of hit batsman, Auger is the one that Smith did hit earlier in this game. With Carrière at second, Elie at first, 1 away. That one misses, and the count 2-1.
Well, it hasn't been a walk in the park for her. She seems to be that Quebec has had pressure pretty well in every inning.
But she's been able to find a way to get out of it. There's a ball right at the third baseman, scooped up and across. No, the umpire says that White came off the bag, and so that will load the bases. So the base is now loaded with one away, and that'll bring up Ella de Bedard. No, it will not. That'll bring up a pinch hitter here for Team Quebec as Lydia Lefebvre comes in to hit for de Bedard here in the bottom of the fourth inning. Lefebvre on the tournament, 2 for 7 with a single and a double, 2 walks, 3 RBI, and 3 runs scored. And takes the first pitch there.
One of the things that you've talked about, the speed of Quebec, and this is a factor when you get at third. That is a very small backstop here on this field, so if they're going to get a good jump, that's the best way they're going to be able to try on a pass ball to get home, because there's very short backstop.
And we saw it similar over at Joan Lenahan. In fact, the backstop even closer, I think, by a couple of feet. We only saw 2 pass ball / wild pitches converted into runs the entire weekend over on Joan Lenahan Field, as runners were so incredibly reluctant to try and score on a ball that gets by the catcher. That one through the infield, that will score at least one. Coming around third and heading for home is Ellie. She'll get in safely. So a 2-run single for Lydia Lefebvre, and Quebec has taken the lead. It's now 2-1. Auger stops at second, and that will bring up Clara Dupont for Lefebvre. That's her 4th and 5th RBI of the tournament. And I believe we're going to see another pinch hitter here. And we're also going to see a change for Nova Scotia.
And a good indication it's going to be a double change as Brandon Gaudette goes to home plate umpire Chris Roberts. So our beautiful, nice-looking scorecards, we may want to kiss them goodbye, Michael.
Well, they still tell a story, even if you can't necessarily read what that story is. As it appears it's going to be Labrie pinch hitting, it's going to be Boutillier pinch hitting for Dupont, as number 34 standing in the on-deck circle. So Jenny Boutillier will come in to pinch hit. And White will move from first base onto the pitching mound. And Smith is coming out of the game. Dylan McLean coming in to play first. So put Dylan McLean in the 5th spot in the batting order. And put her at first base with Molly White, the new pitcher for Team Nova Scotia. And let's take a look at White's pitching stats. Again, such a small sample size, but worth mentioning nonetheless. She's pitched in 2 games, started one of them, given up 2 hits, just 3 runs, all 3 of them earned in an inning and 2/3, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. And White also having to get rid of the extra glove underneath her mitt there. Now she's ready and getting her warm-up pitches in. So you've had a chance to see White through that inning and 2/3. What can we expect from this right-hander?
Well, she definitely has a good fastball, nice little breaking ball as well. So she's got like a lot of weapons to choose from, and a good changeup as well. So she's got some, as I said, a good fastball, changeup, and a breaking ball. So is in her pitching arsenal. And it will be interesting to see, like, all of a sudden you take her off first base and Dylan McLean takes over, what that type of defensive hole that will do, because she, as you talked about, with that long length and stretch, she's definitely taller than McLean. So this is going to be quite an adjustment for the middle infielders as well as Connie Schofer. So that's something that Bradbury and Ryder are going to have to make that adjustment on, throwing over to first. And Blade will play behind the runner, pardon me, Mike.
And the first pitch to Boutillier misses high. As mentioned, this Boutillier pinch hitting for DuPont here. Boutillier, 375 on the tournament, 3 for 8, a single, 2 doubles, 3 RBI, 3 runs scored. And that ball gets past the catcher, and both runners will advance as Johnson couldn't keep that one in front of her.
What you got to do is, if you're Team Nova Scotia, your catcher can't find the ball, you got to tell her where it's at, like either feet, or...
Grounder right back, and a perfect strike from White back to Johnston, and the lead runner gunned down trying to come home. Boutillier reaches on the fielder's choice, 1-2 on the putout for the second out of the inning, and that will bring us back around to the top of the order for Tali Khoury. Khoury 0 for 2 with a pair of groundouts. Runners on the corners, and I don't know about you, but it seems to me that every time I've seen runners on the corners in this tournament, it hasn't lasted long, because that runner from first will head down to second, and it will generally also not draw a throw. But now Boutillier comes out, and re-entering the game is DuPont, so re-entering as a pinch runner, but then going back out into right field again. That's where the labels start to get a little bit weird when you talk about players being able to re-enter. So Jenna Boutillier's day is done then. 0 for 1 with the fielder's choice.
Roberts going to talk to Daniel Brodeur, the head coach here of Team Quebec. Just looking at the lineup card and verifying everything.
And Khoury now ready to step in with DuPont at first and Lefebvre at third. And runner not going.
Well, that's always the broadcaster, Jakes. You were thinking setting that stuff up, and I was on you on that, because I really thought, 2-1 game, why not?
I don't believe in broadcaster jinxes. They only get noticed because they happen one time out of 100, right? So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And sometimes they look like real genius when we say, well, something happens, and then all of a sudden it does happen before. It's like...
Yeah. So Khoury fouls one off, and the count goes to 1-1. As White stands in, now the runner goes, swing and a miss, and as expected, no throw down to second. So it did happen, just happened a couple pitches later. We knew it. So 2-1 now, the count on Khoury, with 2 away here in the bottom of the 4th inning. Another one fouled back, and that one gets pretty close to a couple of cars.
And what they've been doing there on those, when you were talking about runners at the corners and the runner from first going, they've been throwing it to shortstop. The shortstop coming up about halfway between the pitcher's mound and second base to make the catch to see if the runner from third is breaking.
That pitch just misses, and the count goes to 3-2. The other thing you'll see if they don't throw to short is they'll throw it hard right back to the pitcher right away.
Yeah.
Same sort of idea. But yeah, it's either to short or over to the pitcher. There's a grounder right back to White, and she'll flip it over to McLean for the third out. But Quebec does put 2 on the board. A 2-run hit for Lydia Lefebvre drives in the tying and go-ahead runs for Quebec. We've now played 4 complete. It's Quebec 2, Nova Scotia 1. And we head to the 5th inning. And due up in the top of the 5th for Nova Scotia, it'll be Coningshofer, Ryder, and Syllaboy. And if anyone gets on, then Galloway. As Carriere out for her 5th inning of work, trying to see the pitch count. I believe that says something in the 40s, 47 maybe.
Yeah, so she's still good.
Still lots of pitches to work with there. And for Quebec, they've Lefebvre, who came in and pinch hit for Day Bedard, is going to stay in the game at second base. So still one more bench player available for Quebec. That's Janie Labrie for any future changes. Nova Scotia still with 1 bench player as well. That's Rachel Crawford. And coming up, leading things off here in the 5th, it is Coningshofer. Coningshofer struck out looking her first time up. One of 2 strikeouts for Carriere, as Carriere has been pitching to contact well, using her defense behind her so far in this game. And that's part of what's been able to help her keep her pitch count so relatively low. There's one right in at the top of the zone. And again, we're seeing it. First pitch strikes. Meanwhile, Nova Scotia getting another pitcher warming up in the bullpen, is heading out to take a few warm-up tosses is Gavel. That pitch misses and the count goes to 1-1. So trying to keep as many options open as possible for the Nova Scotia pitching staff. That pitch just missing as well, and the count goes to 2-1. While Quebec seems to be pretty content with what they're seeing out of Lauriane Carriere. That one misses low, and it's now 3-1. Carriere gets herself set and delivers. Grounder pulled just down the line, stays fair, long throw across, and in time for the out. As a great arm there from Auger to get Coningshofer at first. That'll bring up Fenway Ryder. She singled her first time up. And on these games today, the players are allowed to actually have some walk-up music being played. With the name Fenway, she doesn't use Sweet Caroline as the walk-up music.
Oh, probably tired of hearing it.
There's the grounder and a second out. We have yet to have Sweet Caroline played on our field on Joan Lenihan at all.
That's interesting. We've heard it a few times here.
I think that's Vern. Vern loves that song, so that's why it plays more regularly here. But with the name Fenway, you would think it would be a given that that'd be her walk-up song. But I digress. We get to Lanissa Syllaboy now with 2 away as Ryder grounded out on the first pitch. To cut that discussion short, Syllaboy takes the first pitch strike in the count 0-1. She flew out to center her first time up. Swing and a miss there in the count 0-2. And we talked about it just a moment ago. Carriere so efficient with her pitches, throwing to contact and letting her defense do its work. That pitch just misses. And again, we talked about it with Johnston there. Ellie doing a good job trying to frame that pitch. Another one that just barely misses, and the count now 2-2.
Boy, she's got some nerves of steel. Not seeing a lot of playing action here over the few days and taking some very close pitches.
And then swings at one down in the zone. Third strikeout for Carriere. Another 1-2-3 inning for Quebec. No runs, no hits, no errors for Nova Scotia. And we head to the bottom of the 5th. with Quebec leading at 2-1. Due up, it is Dumoulin, Dufresne, and Bolduc-So.
Yeah, you were talking about Carrier pitching to contact. Sometimes that when you get into situations where you're trying to be a strikeout pitcher, or you're trying to still throw that no-hitter and everything like that, that's what puts pitch counts up. So you talked about her, making sure that she trusted the defense, rely on the defense. And what it does is, that was another short inning. So, she must be just into the 50s in terms of pitch count. And, here we are as we're heading into the bottom of the fifth. So, that looks good. So, the pitch count is not too high. So she's okay right now into the fifth inning where, Avery Smith was getting up there. So, of course, now White is in relief of her. So, now, of course, for Quebec, they're going to try to waste as much pitches as they can on her, get her pitch count up because, basically Team Nova Scotia's really in the difficult category for arms here in this game because I don't know. I talked about Koningshofer maybe be possible for this, but I'm not too sure because we have not seen any indication of that. Bradbury's pitched some. McCauley's pitched some. So, that's the thing. You get to this juncture and all of a sudden, baseball's a simple game. You get pitching, you win. Pitching and defense wins championships. Yes, offense is pretty, but pitching and championships are usually won when you have good arms. And one of the best teams in Nova Scotia is senior. Dartmouth Moosehead Dry have 4 or 5 arms, and they're trying to win a senior championship in Chatham this weekend.
And, watching Quebec take their infield before this game, they are so much about precision defense, about doing everything exactly right. They even take a slight misstep as they were doing the turning two on the infield, and they did it again. Rather than moving on to the next person, they did it again until they got it exactly right. And because they drill with such precision, that's part of what allows Carrière to have so much trust in her defense. She knows how hard all of those infielders work for every game. As Dumoulin is up to bat here for her third time. She popped out in the first, walked in the third, so 0 for 1 with the walk. That pitch misses high, and I believe we're at a count now of 3-1. As we get confirmation of that, yes, it is indeed a 3-1 count. Here comes that 3-1 pitch. And that's hard hit out to center. And Dumoulin will get the leadoff single, her second time on base. And that'll bring up Rosalie Dufresne. She's 0 for 1 with a walk.
This is where things get a little interesting here for White. This will be probably her first time from the stretch with Dumoulin on. You talked about and have documented Dumoulin's speed. Let's see if she gives a little show-me move here to that speedy base runner from Quebec.
And we saw how good Smith's move was. There's a nice move as well, as no wasted movement in the feet. Just a quick pivot, a quick turn, and fire. And Dumoulin able to get back in, but a real nice move there by White. Another good move. And if that throws a little bit lower, that's a close play there at the bag. But again, one of those ones that it's not so much about getting the out on the pickoff. It's about letting Dumoulin know, hey, you're not going to get a big lead on me. If you're going to steal, you're going to have to earn it.
You talked about it earlier about, of course, the slide step. Also giving a little bit of a different look, maybe different arm angle. Do whatever you do, but try to keep that runner at first. Make sure she doesn't get a good secondary lead.
There's a ground ball right to McNeil. McNeil touches the bag, which turns it into a not a forced play at second, and Dumoulin able to get in safely. Smart move to get the sure out, though, not trying to take the lead runner until you knew for sure you got the out. Wise move there by McLean to make sure they got the one out, and that'll bring up Bolduc-So with a runner on second and one away.
Yeah, sometimes you see them like all of a sudden a ground ball comes to first, they go to second right away, then they go right to the base. And then sometimes that throw goes errant and then you end up getting nobody. So, yeah, take the safe out. It's a safe play. And then if you have time, got it down, and in that time, of course, if it's Ryder going to second, Bradbury can back up the play. Whereas, like, if it's coming back or as quick as it can, there may not be any backup. So, safe play to take.
There's a pitch that just misses high to Bolduc-So as Quebec's top hitter stands in here with a chance to try and extend this 2-1 lead. There's the pitch, and that's in for a strike. 1-1 now the count on Bolduc-So. And it's hard not to be a fan of Bolduc-So. The way she stands in, the way she conducts herself throughout the game, she just looks the part of a ball player, and I have been so impressed being able to watch her all weekend. I know I'm kind of gushing a little bit here, but she is a really, really nice ball player, and I have a feeling we will see her at the national level, as in playing for Team Canada on the women's team somewhere in the near future.
Love that she has the hands, like her hands right above the ear. Like you'll see some of the players today have it right chest level, but you get that good power for some reason when you have the hands right above there. You have the elbow up. It just gives you a little bit more. Yes, it takes a little longer to get to the strike zone and try to get it through the hitting zone, but it's worked for her.
She's able to generate the bat speed, and there she gets one pulled down the third base line. Heading for second with a stand-up double. The run from Dumoulin comes in to score. It's now 3-1. An RBI double for Bolduc-So. And that'll bring up Noémie Latendre. Latendre 0 for 2 on the day so far. Grounded out to third, grounded out to second. Has a chance to put more insurance up on the board here with Bolduc-So in scoring position. And just one away. Bolduc-So now 2 for 3 on the day. As White gets herself set and delivers. That pitch misses down and away, and a nice pick there by Johnston to keep that ball from getting to the backstop. Another one. Having trouble finding it, but there's what you were talking about before. Johnston had a little trouble finding it, and I think we heard every single infielder yell the word feet, and she was able to get it quickly.
Yeah, because there's the one on that pass ball, there was not much communication with her and trying to help her indicate where it is, and that kind of helps. But, of course, sometimes it also can work as a hinder because all of a sudden you have 7 or 8 different voices yelling at you and then telling you where it's at. And so sometimes it works and sometimes it don't.
There's a strike, and the count goes to 3-1. I'd rather hear 7 or 8 voices yell feet at me than nobody at all.
That's what my next point was. You and I are on the same page on that one. I'd rather
and it's much different than, I cover a lot of hockey as well. You hear them yelling feet, and you see all 10 guys on the ice look down, and it only works for the one guy who's actually got the puck in his feet. There's a walk for Latendre, and that'll bring up Carrière. She's 2 for 2 with a pair of singles.
Well, this is a really important where we're at right now here in this ball game, because really Nova Scotia can't afford to be giving up too many runs, but I'm really not surprised that there's not much action here in this Nova Scotia bullpen located close to our broadcast location, because you're getting to that point where it comes a point you're running out of innings, you're running out of outs, because, I mean, here we are, we're at the bottom of the 5th, so, I mean, after this there's 2 innings left, so I'd like to see them maybe try to get some arms up there, trying to get anything going on, but the thing that's the problem now is all his pitchers, Brandon Gannett's pitchers, are playing the position right now. So even if they come in, all they're going to get is their warm-up pitches, nothing bullpen-wise. And that can be a little bit tricky. So he's just basically saying to Molly White, get through this and we'll try to do something in the next half inning.
There's a single through the middle. Bolduc-So rounds third. She's going to hold up there as Bouchard puts up the stop sign. Bolduc-So had a head of steam going, but the stop sign put up, and she did not run through it, as a great play out in center field there by McCauley to charge that ball hard and get it back to the infield quickly. That loads the bases with 1 out, and Charlotte Elie up to the plate. She walked and scored in the fourth, struck out in the second, and we see the Nova Scotia infield weigh in to try to cut down a run at the plate. There's a first pitch strike. I'm a little surprised that the middle infield isn't playing at double play depth to try and get out of the inning, and you have the corner infielders in for that potential play at the plate, as that one fouled way back.
Well, that's what's so beautiful about this sport, Michael, is like you'd have different ideas. I like this idea because, as you say, it comes right back up the middle, gun it at home, because right now the runs are starting to stack up here. So I kind of like this philosophy. You're getting to the point, and it's also showing respect that you know that Quebec team has solid pitching on the other side. So, I mean, regularly probably they wouldn't be doing this, but you got to look at your opposition, and that will help make your decision.
And that strikeout for the second out of the inning, a big strikeout for White there. Her first, the fifth overall for Nova Scotia pitching. And it looks like we're going to get Jenny Labrie in to pinch hit for Auger here. And that is indeed what's going to happen. So Jenny Labrie, the last bench player for Team Quebec, coming in. And Labrie on the tournament, 1 for 13 so far, but that one hit that she has was a big one. It was a bases clearing triple. She came in to score that time. She also walked once and came in to score that time as well. So Labrie comes in as a pinch hitter here in the fifth inning. And we will see a few defensive changes when we get to the top of the sixth, but the first pitch to Labrie right now misses, and the count 1-0 here with the bases loaded, 2 away, and circle this one as a key at-bat in this game, and that one pulled fair down the left field line, just inside the line. Labrie will head down to second. She'll stay there with a double. For Labrie, 2 more RBI. That gives her 5 on the tournament on just 2 hits. Timely hitting for Jenny Labrie. And those 2 runs make it now 5-1 for Team Quebec. Bolduc-So comes in to score. Latente comes in to score. Elie stops at third. And that'll bring up Lydia Lefebvre with 2 on and 2 out.
And Auger will go back to second base, so Labrie comes in, does the job, and
so Auger with the re-entry comes in as the pinch runner. A big at-bat for Jenny Labrie. And that one fouled off as Lefebvre stands in, 0-1 the count. So we've seen 2 players come in and then go back out with the re-entry. That means the only player left available to Quebec to bring back in is Ella Desbedard if they need to make any sort of a move. And we've seen Desbedard already pitch in this tournament, so she could get a chance, since she is out of the game right now, to go and warm up as a pitcher. That pitch just misses. Or the other option to Team Quebec would be to stay with the 10 that they've got and perhaps move some pieces around that way as well. That one misses inside, and it's 2-1 here on Lefebvre, with the score now 5-1. Again, 3 big runs so far here in this inning for Quebec. There's a strike, and it's 2-2. So White 1 strike away now from getting out of this inning, and you figure this is an absolutely must-have pitch for her to try and stem the tide. And it works as she gets Lefebvre to chase. 3 more runs do come in on 4 hits, no errors, and 2 runners left on base. We've played 5 complete, and Quebec leads Nova Scotia 5-1, and as we head to the 6th inning, I'll hand things back over to Dan Hobson. Dan, a very entertaining ball game.
Yeah, and of course, we've seen some big innings here at the championships, and 2 runs, that's not bad, but when you put up 3 afterwards, and all of a sudden it's starting to get away from Nova Scotia, and what this also does is this you mentioned earlier about the pitching to contact. All of a sudden now, Carrier can say, I don't have to be as particular. And now all of a sudden she can say, well, I could just, say, here it is, hit it with your best shot sort of thing. That's what could be going on through her mind. So, I mean, that's what happens is when you get leads in ball games and all of a sudden you guys are the ones that have the momentum and you're going to play at our speed. You're going to play our game. And, I could go after you and say, here, look, as you say, go right after it. Here it is, best shot, whatever happens, happens, So, I mean, right now you're a Quebec fan. You're 2 innings away here from, putting your hands on the gold medal. And for Team Nova Scotia, what do you do here? Are you in the situation right now where most of your pitchers are out on the field, not really getting a chance to go to the bullpen and really warm up? So, I mean, what option really does Brandon Gannett have if they get really into a really big matzo ball and need to get out of it? So it is going to be a tough one. As Shauna Galloway, the leadoff hitter here for Nova Scotia, comes to the plate in the 6th. And you talked about about her numbers. She did most of that in one game. She was pretty well most the player of the game, getting a double and a single. She had herself a day yesterday. Looks at strike one. 0-1 the count.
The big thing right now for Team Nova Scotia, secondary is the pitching concern. Primary, you need to get some runs first.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you lose 14-1 or if you lose 5-1. You've got to get some runs on the board to make those 5 runs that Quebec has not be looming quite as large.
Galloway with a big step. She has a little bit of a small stance and looks at strike 2. Down in the hole, 0-2. McCauley in the batter's box. They're in the circle, waiting the next one as she's trying to get another at bat here in this game. That one's high. Galloway's a bit of a strange character. I don't mean as a person, but you don't often see right-hand hitters, left-hand fielders. Very unique.
Yeah, I could think of maybe 2 or 3 out of this entire 12-team field as that one fouled off. And I don't think he made the catch, but a good effort there by the gentleman in the red ball cap.
So in other words, nice hands, no hands.
Yeah. But, I mean, trying to catch a foul ball when you don't have the glove on, too, that's you got to give him a little bit of a leeway there.
That bounces in and might have hit the mask there. I couldn't believe if it might have been the umpire or the catcher, but I heard the sound of it hitting.
That runs the count full, and this a big pitch here. If Nova Scotia can get the leadoff runner on and flip the order.
Here it is, on its way. Strike 3 looking. Outside corner, Galloway says goodbye for out number 1. Back to the top to McCauley.
Just the 3rd strikeout for Carrier, but all 3 strikeouts, strike 3 caught looking. Nova Scotia not swinging at the 3rd strike there. All 3 times they got rung up.
Well, McCauley's done her job. She's has the lone run here for Nova Scotia here in the 6th as she singled and came around and scored, and that was back in the top of the 1st. Looks at a ball here, 1-0 the count. Gavel in the on-deck circle, waits as this is now an even count at 1-1.
And you can tell that Carrier is very comfortable right now. She's getting the ball, she's getting right back on the rubber and throwing again. No wasted time in between, but gives up a single there to McCauley.
McCauley goes pretty well right through the shortstop at third base. So this was Bryn Gavel to the plate. She grounded out to short, back in the 1st, and doubled back in the 3rd and was left at 2nd. Back in that 3rd inning, and Nova Scotia now, of course, as we mentioned, and they have been pretty well been trailing pretty well most of this ball game, 5-1, and I would be surprised, even with McCauley's speed, I think she's going to stay put. You need runners. They'll go check on her, so they'll send the throw over, carry her over to Latondra.
And Macaulay almost mistimed that slide. The hand barely got back to the bag. Looked like she almost had to pop her shoulder out to get that hand all the way there.
Pop fly, carrier may take it, and she does. And that's a good idea because the catcher didn't quite have the good angle to get at it. You like to run towards as opposed to have to back up, and those ones that are pop up in the air, they're going to spin back. So Carey had the better one, and she'll just take it. And that will be out number 2. On the fly out to the pitcher, Emma Bradbury 0 for 2. Grounded to short and fly to second.
Oh, Molly White.
Molly White, pardon me.
There we go.
I wrote it down on my card wrong, so I wrote her name down wrong. So the time to do it is this game. So
as we see Team Alberta starting to gather here to watch the end of this one and get ready for their gold medal game coming up in a bit. There's a grounder right back.
Right back where it came from. Carry her over to Latondra to retire the side. The hit there by Macaulay is left stranded. No runs, 1 hit. 1 left on, no errors by Quebec. As we head to the bottom of the 6th, it still remains Quebec 1-5, Nova Scotia 1-1. Here at the 2019 Under-16 Girls Invitational National Baseball Championships here on Bell Alliance. My name is Dan Hobson. Delighted to have Michael Petter along for the call here. Bronze medal up for grabs, and right now, that bus that has transported the Quebec players from the hotels here to this ball field, they may have to make a little bit of an extra room there to put the banner and the medals, as that's getting closer to be going to Quebec. And Nova Scotia will have to really pull up their socks and really do something that's very hard, generate a lot of runs against Quebec, 5. And of course there's one last at bat for them, so it is starting to maybe get away, and it may be starting to sink in that the bronze medal may be going to Quebec, Michael.
And you know, a very tough thing to do for Quebec. They won this whole thing last year on this diamond, came back as the defending champions, and a few of the players on this team are returning from last year's championship team. And then to lose in a semifinal and not have a chance to defend your title in the gold medal game, but still find a way to get motivated to try and win that bronze.